What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Man Cave Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Plus, we are on YouTube. Let's talk some college basketball now that the brackets are officially out. With Wisconsin, they get a 3 seed after falling in the Big Ten championship game yesterday. Marquette picking up a 7 seed. Marquette will be taking on New Mexico, which I think is it's going to be a tough one. Tough matchup for Marquette. At least they get out of the 8-9 matchup, but I think New Mexico is going to be a tough test for them. And if Marquette can get through that one, they would potentially face Michigan State. Michigan State's taking on Bryant in a 2-15 matchup. Wisconsin, meanwhile, gets the 3 seed, and they're going to be going up against Montana on Thursday. Now, I know a lot of Badger fans are upset about not playing in Milwaukee, because when you look at Iowa State, that they get Milwaukee and such as the other 3 seed. And you've got Badger fans asking why. Well, it's apparently the committee viewed Iowa State better than Wisconsin. That's what it boils down to, is that they, for whether you agree with it or not, I don't agree with it. But that's kind of how the committee, that was their justification, I guess, is that they chose Iowa State. They thought Iowa State and Kentucky were more deserving. Kentucky, I keep forgetting about Kentucky's in there too. Kentucky, I don't know. To me, I feel like Wisconsin's more deserving. I might be a little bit more of a homer pick there, but for whatever, for their own reasons, the committee has decided that Kentucky and Iowa State more deserving because that's what they went with. So I politely disagree. But that's not the thing that's got me more annoyed with Wisconsin's seeding. And I get it. Brackets aren't going to make everybody happy. You're never going to get a 100% approval rating when it comes to seedings and matchups and such. But the thing that I'm scratching my head about, and the thing that has me grinding my gears on a Monday, is why the Badgers get stuck playing an early Thursday game. That, to me, is the more perplexing thing. And I know Greg Gard mentioned it a little bit yesterday, and you could tell that was kind of his biggest annoyance with it. Not necessarily not playing in Milwaukee, which would have been nice, don't get me wrong. But it was after playing 4 straight days and playing in a championship game, and the last championship game on Sunday, they got to play one of the first games on Thursday. What, tip time's 12:30 on Thursday? And they got to go to Denver. So, I mean, that extra day could do a lot of stuff. I mean, given an extra day of rest for that Badger team. For a 3 seed, I think they deserve that. I think they deserve that for having to play 4 straight games and advancing to Sunday afternoon in a championship game. If you're going to take them out of Milwaukee, for crying out loud, let them play at least on Friday then. But no, they get short rest. They got to travel to Denver, and they get short rest. And Montana just got to go a little bit to the south and west there, and boom, they're there. I think Wisconsin takes care of business against Montana. But I'm a little bit worried about their potential next matchup, whether it's VCU or BYU. VCU winning their conference tournament right before Wisconsin took the court. BYU, I mean, they took down Iowa State a couple times. I think either matchup, whether it is BYU or VCU, is going to present a challenge to Wisconsin, especially if Wisconsin is still a little exhausted. I know they're not going to use it as an excuse. They're not. And I'm sure there's other teams that are in a similar position. I mean, I guess VCU is kind of in a similar position because they won their conference championship on yesterday right before Wisconsin. They're going to be playing there too. But, I mean, for 3 seed Wisconsin, that just it scratched my head at that. And I don't quite get it. That, to me, is the biggest, like, really? Really? And it has me concerned. I think they'll take care of business. I think the best thing is that they can take care of business against Montana. be in a comfortable spot in the second half to where maybe you can rest a John Tanji and a Blackwell and some of those guys and maybe get some minutes to the other guys. Have it in hand to where they can rest a little bit. Worst thing would be is if this game goes down to the wire and it's a close game and you got to play your main guys a bunch of minutes. That's worst case scenario. Wisconsin has the talent to make the Sweet 16. But how many times have we said leading up to before the bracket change, it's all based off matchups. It's all based off seedings. Who are you going to play? Who are they matched up against? And I think a BYU or a VCU matchup is going to be a tough matchup. I think Wisconsin can beat both those teams, and they'll be favored to beat both those teams, but it's going to be a tough one. And then if Wisconsin does advance to the Sweet 16, they would potentially play Alabama, who's the 2 seed, or a St. Mary's, who's the 7 seed. You got Vandy as the 10 seed in there. Looking at this thing, though, and they're in the Duke region. I mean, this East region to me, when does the Cooper Flagg injury, if he is out for this whole thing, or he's out for at least the first few weeks, when does it come to really hurt Duke? I don't think it'll be in the first round. They would either play Mississippi State or Baylor. I think they could beat them there. Then they'd get like either Oregon or Arizona. Those could be an intriguing one. But I guess if I really wanted to, man, is it that hard of a case to make Wisconsin get to the Elite Eight? I don't know. That Alabama game. It's that going up against Crimson Tide. It's going to be a tough one. But no doubt, I think Wisconsin is clearly a Sweet 16 team. I think they can get by BYU and VCU, whoever it is they play. They'll take care of business against Montana. I don't have any question about that. I just think they've got to have that thing in control. Don't let it get down to the wire. Don't let it be a close game. Shut out Montana right away. Just cut the head off the snake. Try to preserve as much as you can so you've got a little bit extra in the tank for BYU or VCU. Then you can get a little bit of rest and prepare for that Sweet 16 game, which probably will be against Alabama. You know, I'm looking at this bracket, and I mean, there's some really intriguing matchups here for that first round. Obviously, you got the 8-9s, which are always going to be close ones. Louisville versus Creighton, that's a interesting one. Then Auburn would have to play that one if Auburn gets by. Mississippi State, Baylor, UConn, Oklahoma. What version of UConn are we going to get? UConn still getting some good favors because they are defending champs. But again, which version? It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde when it comes to UConn. And then you got Gonzaga and Georgia. So, I mean, there's obviously the good 8-9 matchups. But there's some other ones here that are kind of tasty. Texas A&M and Yale, 4-13. Texas A&M's the 4, Yale's the 13. Yale just seems like that team that's going to go to the Sweet 16 or upsets the higher seed in the first round. Honestly, I could see Yale making the Sweet 16. If they beat Texas A&M, they would either play Michigan or UC San Diego. I wouldn't be surprised if Yale gets to the Sweet 16. I already mentioned Marquette, New Mexico. I think that's going to be a good game. I'm curious to see how Iowa State does, how far they go with their injuries too. Do they get by the first round? Okay, if they get by the first round, can they get past the second round and advance to the Sweet 16? Memphis, Colorado, the Fighting Penny Hardaways. Memphis has had a good season this year, but Colorado State's going to give them a challenge. Then you got, I think, Kansas and Arkansas. You look at this one. This is at the bottom of the South region. West region, excuse me. Bottom of the West region. Kansas and Arkansas. Kansas is 7, Arkansas is 10. You've got Bill Self coaching Kansas. You've got John Calipari in his first year coaching Arkansas. Winner of that one would potentially face Rick Pitino and St. John's. I mean, we could have a Calipari versus Rick Pitino matchup for the right to go to the Final Four. or a Rick Pitino versus Bill Self in Kansas for the right to go to the Final Four. Name power galore. I look at this bracket, though, for the West region, and I think St. John's has a good path to get to the Elite Eight. You know, if they get by Omaha in their first round, they can beat Kansas or Arkansas, which then they would either face like Missouri Drake, Texas Tech is the 3, or UNC Wilmington. I think St. John's has the path to get to the Elite Eight. And it would set up for, I think, you know, Florida is the popular pick. They're playing some really good basketball, but we're potentially talking about two of the hottest teams in college basketball for the right to go to the Final Four between Florida and St. John's. If it gets to that point, that would be a hell of a matchup. That'd be a lot of fun with that matchup. You got two teams playing some really good basketball. Florida, we know their pedigree. A little bit under, I think. You know, they're not the Billy Donovan teams from the early 2000s, but they're playing some really good basketball. And then St. John's with Rick Pitino. That would be a fun one. You're looking at the Midwest. I think Illinois could make a run to the Sweet 16. You know, potentially they would play Kentucky in the second round. Don't sleep on Illinois. I think that would be a good matchup between them and Tennessee in the Sweet 16. I mean, Houston, just their defense. They're the best defensive team in the country. You know, maybe Clemson or Purdue in the Sweet 16. And then they would face like either an Illinois or a Kentucky to go to the Final Four. So I like Houston's path to get to the Final Four. If we're looking at the South, you got Auburn as the top seed. Michigan State's at the bottom there. Michigan State makes me nervous. I don't know how far to pick them. On one hand, I can see them getting that path, you know, whether it's Marquette or New Mexico. And then if they face Iowa State's banged up. So I could see that path to the Elite Eight for Michigan State. On the other hand, would we be totally surprised if Michigan State loses early? I guess I wouldn't be. All the credit in the world. I like Tom Izzo. I know I might be in the minority of Badger fans. I like Tom Izzo. But there has definitely been times where that team in tournament history has underperformed. And then there's the times where they're seated lower and they overperform. But I feel like Auburn's got the path to get to the Elite Eight. Yeah, I think Auburn's going to come out of that one for a Final Four. I think they got, I don't want to say easy, but I could see Auburn, Michigan State, and I'd pick Auburn to get to the Final Four. Then you got going back to the East Regional, Duke. When's the Cooper Flag injury going to pop up and really hurt them if he misses extended time? Arizona started off the season highly ranked. Then they went through a lull. Now they're kind of back up. Oregon's going to be a tough out. But again, what version are you going to get from them? Alabama's on there. I mean, I can make the case for a Duke, Alabama, even Wisconsin, maybe even Arizona to get to the Final Four in that one. That one, to me, the East is maybe a little bit more open for a lower seed to advance and get through there. Just because the biggest thing is, and I know Duke still won the ACC championship, but Duke, the ACC championship is not like what it used to be. I mean, that conference is down. But if Cooper Flag's going to be missing an extended amount of time, and even if he's out on the court, is he going to be 100%? Where is he at going to be percentage-wise? And if you go up against a really good team, is that going to affect them? Is that going to hurt them more? I could see a team, a lower seed outside the top two, maybe coming out of the East to represent the Final Four. It could be that Wisconsin team. Wisconsin's got the talent. John Tonji's got to play better than what he did yesterday. Whether it was because they were exhausted and legs weren't underneath them, doesn't matter. There is no tomorrow when it comes to tournament time. Can't have that type of performance again. Can't be that cold from the field again. There were so many times yesterday in that game with Wisconsin and Michigan. Wisconsin had plenty of chances to win that thing. Whether it was just getting a dang rebound at the end so we didn't have to do like 500 reviews to make sure it was off of Wisconsin out of bounds, or making a shot here or there. They had chances, and they just could not capitalize on them. They couldn't turn them in. So hopefully it's like, okay, after that performance yesterday, try to get some rest and let's rebound here and let's make a run. I could see Wisconsin making a run. But the thing that makes me the most nervous, again, to kind of bring it all back, is that quick turnaround. If they can get through this opening week, if they can get through with a win on Thursday and a win on Saturday and get to that Sweet 16, get a little bit of a rest, they're going to be a tough out as long as John Tanji and John Blackwell play up to their high standards, play up to a high level. Those two can carry this team deep into the tournament. Not saying we don't need Max Klesmit or Carter Gilmore or Stephen Crowell or McGee or any of those guys. We need those guys too. Wisconsin needs those guys too. But for Wisconsin to make a deep run, it's got to be the two Johns, Blackwell and John Tanji.